And now I will call to order our parking committee meeting for September 9th. Okay, our first, is there any public comment tonight? I think we have public comment for our parking committee, correct?
Yeah, was it going to be a presentation of the outline first, or should I just?
I think you should speak now, yes,
Okay.
thank you. And if you could give us your name and address, please.
Thanks. My name is Bill Freight. I live at 47 Hecker Avenue and a business owner at 19 Tokenique Road. And so I wanted to thank you all very much for coming up with a revision of parking regulations and fees and permits. Personally, I've been waiting for this area, parking, to be addressed for a long time. I've been witness to problems with it on a regular basis, and I've spoken to a couple of you about that. So I applaud the recommendations. I think the expansion of 1 hour spots on Tokenique Road proper is terrific. There's a number of businesses from the corner up to where the restaurants start that you know, can really benefit from 1 hour parking. From the Beijing to the dry cleaners to the liquor store. There's one business that's going to be impacted probably negatively, and that would be the pottery group, because they throw birthday parties over there that last more than an hour, and there's often a lot of pickup and drop off of young people.
Where are they?
Excuse me?
Whereabouts are they on the?
On the map.
They're right between the caterer
They're
and...
They're between the cleaners and the liquor store.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
you know, they do tend to have a lot of pickup and drop-offs right there, and I think as long as they're notified
Right.
to direct, you know, their clients to appropriate parking, that can be worked out. The one thing that I saw in the outline was on the map you have 4 1 hour spaces on each side of the street, and on the number 1 on the outline, so that would be 8 spaces instead of 4, because there's 4 on each side.
It actually would bring it to 9 on each side?
Excuse me?
It would actually bring it to 9 on each side.
No, the way that I'm reading this, in number 1, there are...
Oh, there are 4 currently?
There are 4 currently,
Right.
but
Yeah.
there are 4 on each side
Yes,
currently.
yes.
Yeah, we see that.
Okay,
in
so
the
that
map.
would be 8. So the addition of 14 would bring it up to 22
No.
total?
We'd be adding 9. Adding 10, so you'd have 9 on each side, bringing it up to 18 total.
Yeah. We're adding 5 on each side to the existing 4.
Okay, but this, on number 1, says the next 7 closest spaces on each side.
Did you count the boxes, or did you look at the
7.
text?
Yeah.
Oh, on the text, on the number 1 on the text.
So,
It says that they're proposing adding the next 7 closest spaces to the post road on each side. So there would be 4 plus
not
7?
sure.
that's
Yeah.
number
Where are you
4.
reading
That's number
from?
4.
We're
You're
talking about
looking
number 1.
Number 1?
I'm talking about number 1.
Right.
Yeah, it's the first 4 spaces are already 1 hour.
Yes.
I'm proposing changing the next 5.
Oh, doesn't it say 7 on here?
I think you're looking at the wrong number on the memo.
Maybe you're looking at number 4 on the memo.
No, I'm reading off of number 1.
What memo are you looking at, Bill?
Oh, that's
Oh,
it.
I don't know where that, I've
Yeah.
never seen that.
Oh, this maybe is a compilation from a press of the memo.
Oh.
Okay,
not sure.
well, so it's not
Okay.
7, it's 5 on
It's
each
5,
side,
yeah.
adding 5 on each side, so a total of 9 on each side, so it'd be 18 one-hour spaces.
Okay, so, all right, that makes good sense then. Thank you. I would say that, you know, in adjusting all of this, it's a great effort, and what's going to happen is there's about 15 employees that are parking out there every day for 8 hours in the Tokenique diagonal spots. And so by moving the 1 hour spots and having more enforcement on the front of the block, it's my belief that we should be giving those employees the availability of permit spots in the back. And I see in in the number 3 section,
Yep,
so the outline is for 9 spaces in 1 row and then 3 up against the Center Street.
Yes.
So in my personal looking at it over the years, with 15 employees that are being displaced, I was wondering if there would be a possibility of using, where the 9 spaces is, there are 8 right on the other side of that loop. Do you see where I'm describing on the
Yeah.
9 section? So I guess my comment would be, if we could forget about the 3 on Center Street and use the 9 and the 8 next to it, those are the furthest spaces away from the businesses. And but I'm unclear about the impact of additional permit parking in that lot, and if there's a reason for it to be limited to 12 instead of 17. Because I think the 17 could be used by our current employee load that is going to be displaced off of the front of the road by the changes, if I'm being clear.
Well, what you're saying then is that today, due to lack of enforcement, there are 17 people really occupying an 8-hour space on Tokenique Road in the diagonal slots.
That's correct.
Yep.
15.
15.
Or 50. Okay.
But roughly, because
Yeah.
there's another business that's just moving in over there as well. So I don't see that ideally, we're offering our business employees a reasonable solution instead of running back and forth and
Right,
changing
right.
spots during the
Right.
day. So if there is not a downside to doing the 9 spaces and the 8 just fronting that,
Right.
that is the furthest spaces away from the businesses, and it would likely eliminate the need for the 3 right up close to Center Street. And, this is just a personal opinion, and I know that you've studied this and come up with a great recommendation. So if it stays the way it is, that's fine too.
Well, that's up to them.
But I just think that it's terrific that we're trying to create a solution for our employees over there, and at the same time get some enforcement. The enforcement on the front has been very spotty for a long time, and particularly in the 2-hour spots. And it's haphazard in the 1-hour spots. An illustration would be today we had 2 cars in the 1-hour spots for 3.5 hours and didn't get a chalk mark on their tire. So there was no enforcement of the 1-hour or the 2-hour spots today. And, that's kind of another issue with the parking enforcement. But the expansion of 1-hour spots is great in theory. If it isn't matched with enforcement, then it's,
I agree with that.
then it's just a hypothetical solution.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because you're down there and you see what's going on. One of the recommendations, actually it's point number 2, is to, in front of what I guess is the Center Street Public House. On Center Street, there are 13
Yes.
parking spaces, and they apparently are now at 3 hours each?
Yes.
And to go down to 1 hour. But aren't those parking spaces usually taken by restaurant goers?
Well, one of the thoughts behind that was trying to keep that space moving and trying to allow for deliveries to happen without clogging the street, because if somebody parks there for 3 hours and you've got, those are all taken, you've got deliveries coming in, it makes it very difficult to deliver to all those businesses.
Okay.
So that was.
All right, no,
That was our
I
thing.
just wanted to understand the reasoning, because usually I would think a restaurant customer would, if they're really in restaurant, would be there for more than an hour.
Right, the rest of that whole parking lot is 3 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is a good point, particularly if there's going to be enforcement in the front of the block. Because if we're going from enforced 1 hour to an enforced 2 hour spots on the diagonals in the front, then you're correct. The back is mostly for the restaurants, for the patio restaurants,
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
And yoga. There's an awful lot of yoga activity back there, too.
So to follow on what you're saying, you're really looking at an expansion of the permit parking by 8 spaces, is that correct? That's what you're
Technically
recommending?
by 5.
By
So saying get rid of the
Yeah,
3
get
and.
rid of
and
the
Take
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 That's
away the
right.
three and
Got it.
and
That's
bring on-
right. It would be,
Okay.
it'd be
Yeah.
offset from the
Yep.
3 and
Yeah.
an expansion by 5, yeah. And,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say, like, as you're discussing it, I think it's easier to add more later. If we give out permits,
Yep.
that's gonna be harder to take away.
Okay.
So, as you're delivering, that's what, and my original proposal was a lot more radical. And I, discussed it with parking staff. And I think you have to, in your discussion deliberations, you have to think about balancing the customers of the businesses as well as the employees who need a place to park. And we'd rather not have the employees taking up spaces that the customers should be
I would
in.
agree.
that's
So-
right. We have a difficult situation now with people coming from the Rowayton direction. If you come down the block and there isn't a space there, you're going somewhere else, basically. So freeing those spaces up for the businesses would be tremendous, I think, for everybody involved.
But I think I'm hearing, the enforcement is a key.
Definitely. So I actually
The-
support what you're recommending, to move those 3 permit spaces. Leave those
As 3 hours.
As is.
3 hours, I guess. I would probably be more radical too, Kate, and I would, I prefer to max out our parking limit to 2 hours, but, we could go slow on that, and anyway, moving those 3 spaces and then adding the additional 5 so that the employee permit block is located in the spaces that are furthest away from the merchants, but not in a place that's considered unwalkable or unsafe, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Kate, what was the rationale, oh, sorry, I'll ask after you're done, because I
Yep.
know you're still talking.
No, that's fine, I'm not. On your question about the actual Center Street spots, maybe going from 3 hours to 2 hours
Right.
instead of from 3 to 1,
I was gonna recommend that as well.
those
Yeah.
parallel spots.
Yeah.
I can tell you in practicality, a lot of the deliveries take place because of the space behind my store where there isn't parking.
Right.
Marked parking spaces, so the trailers come up and,
Park there.
for the restaurants and offload
There.
there, and they're not, we have diagonal spots across from, where the
Drive-in.
teller, the drive-through teller, those spots, are not impacted by a truck pulling up,
Right.
kind of behind my property. And, that seems to work out. We get also deliveries on the front of the block, and they try their best to not block people in, and, it's usually a quick offload. So there's some deliveries in the front, and then the bigger trucks tend to go in the back. And also the carpet shop, they have a big truck. There's delivers
say.
early, so,
Okay, so it doesn't conflict
yeah.
usually.
Having those spots on, I'm gonna call it, I don't know how to differentiate the two center streets, but
Yeah.
on the
right.
Call that Center Street North.
eastern side of Center Street, it's consistent with our other parking regulations that are 2 hours on side streets,
Okay.
2 hour maximum on side streets.
So that's another thing. I don't
Yeah.
know the designation of that,
Yeah.
if it's actually a street or if it's,
Mhm.
you know, that's, since we have two center streets back there.
Are the
it is
24
confusing.
permit spaces that border Old Kings Highway, are those for railroad station?
Those are
parking?
merchant permits. These are all merchant
All
permit
merchant, okay.
spots. when we're
Employee,
talking.
employee permits.
Yep.
Yes.
So-
Merchant employees.
So we're going,
I mean, they could, you know, I think there might be one or two that are apartment tenants.
okay,
Oh,
yeah.
From
Yeah.
But-
upstairs.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but generally speaking, it's employees of the businesses. It is not commuter parking, and if we catch somebody using it as commuter parking, they're subject to the same regulation about abuse of a permit,
Okay.
that we could take it away.
So so all those 24 permits, and then when we're talking about.
And then there's another
adding-
28 in the other,
On the far
Right,
side.
we're adding some more, though, with this proposal, we'll be adding some more.
yes.
Well,
Okay.
so I had kind of another question that's unknown to me, is when you open these, if you open 17 spaces here, you know, they don't automatically go to the Tokenique Road employees.
No,
or-
we have a waiting
Because
list.
it's kind of an open thing. and-
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that goes to another whole topic about how these spaces are issued and.
Correct.
You know, I mean, I was around when the big restaurant on the corner was, you know, mandated parking, that they had to buy permit parking, but then where is it?
There
You know,
wasn't.
It's a Leroy Avenue train lot, and so from all over the place. So, you know, again, it's, my view of this is trying to solve it so that it suits our employees and doesn't have them running all over the place to try and comply. Because they've been basically left alone for a couple of years now to, in fact, they've been encouraged into the front of the parking by the choice of enforcement, is what I would, how I would put that. The enforcement in the back lot is fairly regular and consistent, and we kind of end up in a little bit of a no man's land over there because of being a state road and because of the highway, the Metro North and all of that. So anyway, without belaboring it any further, because you guys have given me a lot of time to just
No, it's
Sure,
very-
we
explain,
appreciate
Very
your-
helpful.
your
you know,
thoughts.
but when I sit in my store and I look out the window all day, this is what I see.
Great.
And it seems like a reasonable solution.
Yeah,
You know,
I think it is a reasonable solution.
yeah. And it wouldn't have been just enforcing what was there. It couldn't have been a reasonable solution because it would force all the employees to move the car 3
Yeah.
times a day if it was left as is. So the expansion of the permit is really what creates an effective solution.
Yep,
Great,
Thanks
thank
Thank
you.
for
you.
hearing me
Thank
out
you.
on it.
yep. So, you know, I recommend that we modify Kate's recommendation according to what we heard from Mr. Freight to
For item 3.
keep what Kate's proposing on Tokenique Road.
Yeah.
And for the map number 3, eliminate or revert the 3 spaces closest to Center Street back to, I guess, 3 hour. Is that right?
Just leave them alone.
Just leave them
Yeah.
alone.
So that it'd be the 9 and 8
Just the 9 plus 8 closer to the other
closest
leg
to,
of Center
yeah.
Street.
Can I ask a general question before we go into
Yeah.
the specifics? Kate, what's the rationale between a 2-hour versus a
Yeah.
3-hour?
So,
I tried to look on the P and Z website.
I don't know
just-
that there is any. So, when I said I was looking at doing something more radical,
Mhm.
I actually had was looking at taking away a lot of the 3-hour.
Mhm.
And the feedback I got from parking staff was that for the restaurants, the 3 hours was more of a necessity, that 2 hours is, and I think some of the other services, 3 hours or 2 hours would be creating some difficulty. So here's how I decided to look at it. Baby steps.
Yep.
I think, do some of these changes.
So do we have a total of, I could have done it, I'm sorry. Do we have a total of how many 2-hour spaces and how many 3-hour spaces?
Right now, we have 59 2 hours.
Okay.
In the Center Street South, you can see there.
Oh, okay.
So I'm recommending
Yep,
taking
okay.
away 5 of those.
But hold on, but we
I'm
also.
sorry, 11
have-
of those.
But we also have 2-hour.
I wasn't counting those.
Okay.
So if you want to add them up, so we have 28
48 plus
plus
59.
20 plus 59.
Yeah.
And then you've got 12 more on street, so 17, 107, and 12 more. You've got 119 2-hour.
Okay, and then the 3-hour, totally, when we look at the whole.
3-hour,
we have-
41 and 59, so,
And here's 13
That's-
right here also.
and 13, yeah, okay.
So
113 of 3 hours.
I just need to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry, and there's, oh, no, never mind, 113, yeah.
The comment that the 3 hours is essential for restaurants, is that considering that it's restaurant employees parking in them?
No.
Because I don't
Customers.
get a 3-hour lunch, do you?
No,
Well, and 113 3-hour, that's why I wanted to know the
Yeah.
total. Because other than a restaurant, if you're going, let's say there's a lawyer up above in
Mhm.
one of these. 3 hours is still a long appointment at a lawyer or an
Mhm.
accountant, or, I'm just trying to think of other businesses that you would need, other than a restaurant, where else would you need to spend 3 hours of your time in this, of the merchants that are there?
Well, I think an interesting point with that is that for lunches, maybe 2 hours is plenty. For
Right.
restaurants, 3 hours at dinner time would be reasonable, but there's
But we
zero
don't-
There's no
enforcement
enforcement.
after
Yeah,
5
so
o'clock
it's not
anyway.
an
Right.
issue.
So they're all working that out.
Right,
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Right.
the dinner time doesn't matter. 'cause
Yeah.
you're-
I believe that our merchants have gotten accustomed to utilizing 3-hour parking for employee parking. That's what I believe.
There is the other alternative of somebody having lunch and then continuing to shop along the block.
Yeah.
So that's,
I was going to say that
Yeah.
the Chamber of Commerce has some idea that you
Yes.
park once and shop many.
yeah, we all,
we'd like that.
we all kind of hope for that.
That's true. That's a
Does
good
that
point.
happen?
Yep.
I just wanted to ask one other point, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you folks have the answer, but one of the other property owners posed a question of, as spaces get transferred from 1, 2, or 3-hour spots to permit spots, does that impact if a new business comes in and they're required to have a certain amount of available parking? In other words, does permit parking disappear off the map when you're evaluating an incoming business that needs a certain number of parking spaces to comply with zoning?
So when zoning requires them to have a certain number of spaces, they can't use town-owned spaces as their spaces, unless they already have the permit. So they can't.
They can't
it's-
count
yeah,
permit spots.
No,
So it's a deduction from the overall parking number for incoming businesses then? The
No.
expansion of permit spots actually?
so an
reduces-
incoming business wouldn't be entitled to the permits, they'd have to go on the waiting list just like everybody
Right.
else.
I suppose, I'm not really talking about permits though, I'm talking
Customers.
about an incoming business in order to
To get
qualify.
a zoning
On planning and
approval.
zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't
what
use,
kind
they
of
can't use
business
our
it is.
spaces.
There, I think what you're getting at is one of my frustrations, and that is the communication between zoning approvals and parking inventory or lack thereof.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
We want to continue to incent new businesses to come.
Yes.
And so there has to be close communication And we have to continue to find ways, maybe more of this, changing more spots over time
Well,
to.
I mean, this is an illustration of when that restaurant on the corner that's now been a
Yep.
couple of different names, when they applied to go there for a restaurant, they have no abutment of any municipal parking space.
Right.
And it's an 80-seat restaurant plus employees, you know, and somehow, you know, I don't know if they were counting Metro North spots across the street, but because half of this lot back here is owned by Wells Fargo also, so.
Yeah,
Right.
But they can't use our spaces. They can't say, well, we have 59 spaces. They might make the argument that you have 59 spaces there and, you know, this is how they're utilized now, so we feel that there will be enough room for
Right.
our customers and our employees, but they can't lay claim to them.
Correct.
And, you know, if a new business were to come in and planning and zoning says, you need 5 spaces, that doesn't mean we take away 5 spaces from the public and assign them to this new business. They don't
Right.
automatically get 5 permits from us. They have to go on the waiting list, and if their permit's available, they can get them, but
Right.
it doesn't reduce the inventory for the existing businesses.
Okay.
Correct.
But the point I was trying to
Yep.
make was exactly what you're talking
Yes.
about. It seems contradictory from what, between one department
Yep.
and the other.
Exactly.
in
We have
how-
to-
in
we have
how
to
the-
communicate
there's a-
well with-
There's how the spaces are counted is the magic formula, that's for sure.
Right.
So-
Kind of on the flip side of that too, you know, we have 2 great advantages of being on the Post Road bus route and literally right across from Metro North.
Yes.
So my great hope is that when possible, retailers will be encouraging their employees to take public transit.
And there
To
is
and from work.
there is a bit of that happens on
That's
our
great.
block right now.
Yep.
I can report that, yeah.
That's good. Okay. So, do you want us to take these, does anybody have any other, well, maybe we should continue with the bullets.
You know, or the 2-hour versus 3-hour discussion.
Yep.
What I had originally looked at doing was taking away a good chunk of the 3 hours.
Mhm.
And, you know, making some of it, like the 41 in Center Street, it's a nice bright green on my map, but the lower part. You know, cutting that in half, making half of that 2 hour, leaving some of the 2 hour, and then creating a lot more 1 hour. But it seems to, what I'm understanding from the parking range is that the need for the 2 and 3 hours is, in that lot, is more than the 1 hours spaces.
I hadn't thought about people, I mean, I do park and walk, but I know, talking to a lot of people, they want to move their car, but if we could encourage them to
Yeah.
park there I have no problem now rethinking the 3 hours
Yeah.
and keeping it, if it would mean someone would park their car and then use their feet. I mean, the day I talked to you, I had parked way over, you said where, we were talking about where I had parked, and it was
Mhm.
much further, but that would be fine if that's what people did, but it doesn't sound like that's what the feedback you're getting.
Well, I think you make a really valid point, Mark, about, you know, park and walk.
Mhm.
We do want to get to that policy, especially after the redevelopment activities conclude in, you know, in a
Yeah.
couple of years. So we might want to hold on changing the 3 hours for now, because we don't want to have to go back.
Okay. So I am talking about taking away, item number 4 was to take away, there's 7 3-hour spaces that are in the line with all the permit spaces. And it just didn't make sense to me.
Yep.
It seemed like a good space to add a few more permit spaces.
Yep.
And then the last one was up against the Goose and the Bodega, changing those from 2-hour spaces to 1-hour spaces.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's because really, the big users there would be the CVS store.
Yeah.
Or
Customers.
the bagel shop.
Or the bagel shop.
And the bagel shop,
Yeah.
right, which
Yeah.
are in and out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
somebody who's, if you're going to the Goose for lunch, you're gonna go to the longer, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So really, we're looking at, in terms of permit spaces, you're adding an aggregate, if we take Bill's suggestion, an aggregate of 24 new permit spaces.
yes.
9, 8, 4.
The
right?
aggregate of number 3 and
Yeah.
number 4, plus the 5 additional that Bill pointed out here.
The numbers are, refer to the memo and the
Yep,
motion,
no, I got
not
it.
to the number of
We're
spaces.
getting rid of this.
Yep.
We're adding 8 here, and
Yep.
9 there, 17 plus 4 is
No,
21.
that's 7 down there. Where you're seeing
Oh,
4,
7,
it's
it's
7.
7, it's 7, sorry.
It's number 4, but there's 7
I guess I
spots.
should have
Yeah.
lettered them instead
No,
of numbering them.
Maybe.
It took me a while to figure it out, and then I did,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
But just getting back to Bill's point, I mean, if a business, let's just say you have 5 businesses along Tokenique Road, and 4 of them turn over, and each one of them has a high velocity of customers coming in and out, in and out. I mean, you haven't created any more parking spaces, yet you're gonna say where everyone's allowed to come in and have their business? That's the problem that you really have, because you don't, you only have you have a finite number of parking spaces.
Correct.
And it's gotta be planning and zoning is figuring this out, because they're giving the permit to the business to come in and say,
Yeah.
it's okay for you to have your business there. And if you've got 5 businesses that have a high velocity of turnover, there's no place to park.
Well, I guess the question for planning and zoning is, how do they decide?
Oh,
You know,
that-
if you've got, say it's a restaurant with, 50 tables,
Right.
how do they decide how much parking they need and whether what we've got, the inventory and the chance of you getting a space is enough?
Right, and if you had 4 restaurants right there in a row, imagine that, because they want it,
Well,
they'll
we
want
probably
it.
don't have to, but.
No, but I'm just saying, if you did, then
Yeah.
you would, they'd all want 2 or at least 2-hour spaces because they were thinking of a lunch crowd. But I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma, but it's,
What I
Yeah,
mean,
they're,
We do have 4 restaurants over there, by the way.
yeah, that's true.
so do they now.
In that block, there are 4.
oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, one of
And
them
then the
doesn't
goose.
serve food.
what, the Chinese place, the takeout?
The other thing is the balance of designating these and then having anybody actually enforce 1-hour parking over there.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
It's very.
Listen, I can tell you the 1-hour spots in front of me, they get marked, if, on a day when they are getting marked, they get marked at 11:30, and they usually get rechecked closer to 2 hours later. So he's looking for real violation of a 1-hour spot. He's sort of allowing 2 hours in a 1-hour spot, and you get tagged at the second hour, not the first hour. So, expanding 1-hour parking again, there's some of us businesses that would like 20-minute parking, but, 1 hour is kind of the reasonable,
Yeah.
accommodation. But then the enforcement, if it's only in the middle of the day for 2 hours, we don't get a second, we don't get another look between 3 and 5. We get, on the days when we get enforcement, it's one time, kind of at lunch hour, kind of to just
Yeah,
jolt a little bit people into,
Yeah, and I understand that as we go to shorter parking intervals, then they have to
They have to step up.
Yeah.
these-
circulate more
Yeah,
Yes.
I
more
didn't
quickly.
hear that loud and
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
so there's, I think, that-
it would really lend itself, the shorter the time span, it really starts to lend itself into, credit card parking spaces.
Right.
Like,
but that still requires enforcement, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
Because
yeah.
once you park
Yeah.
overtime, it still takes a person coming by to give you a ticket.
Yeah, so, all of this requires reasonableness
Right.
and flexibility, but not too much flexibility, otherwise it's like, you get somebody that says, well, I parked in this spot for 3 hours on Monday, why am I gonna ticket on Wednesday?
Right, that's true.
Well, we get into these fundamental questions. New Canaan charges for parking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Darien doesn't.
yeah.
That's an advantage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so, shall we take these bullets one at a time?
Yeah.
Would you like to do that? All right, so bullet number 1 in the memo is on Tokenique Road. Kate's proposing that we change 5 additional spaces on each side from 2 hour to 1 hour, making a total of 18 one-hour spots on Tokenique Road. Duly noted that we need appropriate enforcement for that, if we're gonna make that change. Questions, comments?
I'm good with it.
Can I get a motion to approve bullet number 1?
So moved.
Susan, may I get a second?
Second.
Kip? All those in favor? Great, okay. Bullet number 2, on Center Street. Kate is proposing to change the 13 3-hour spaces to 1 hour, and I think we heard a modification to consider 2-hour parking since it's adjacent to restaurants. Does anybody have a strong feeling on 1 hour proposal or 2 hour?
Well, if the delivery argument is resolved by the virtue of the large trucks having a space to turn, I would sort of I would go with the 2 hour for right now to see if it works,
Yep,
because it's a restaurant.
yep,
Sounds like a motion.
Yep.
okay,
Okay.
So this 1 hour is 2 hours.
right, correct. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the change to 2-hour spots on Center Street.
So move.
Mark?
Second.
Kip, all those in favor? Great, thank you. In the Center Street North lot, Kate is proposing to convert 12 3-hour spaces to permit spaces. And I think we're altering the proposal to change.
It'll be 17.
17?
We're moving the location.
We're moving the
Right,
location.
seven.
Yeah,
So the way I looked at it was that those nearest Old Kings Highway South and closest to Center Street
Right.
Yep.
North. South, sorry, Center Street South.
yep,
Right.
okay. So I'll entertain a motion to approve converting 17 spaces in Center Street North to permit. Is that the correct way to
Yep,
say that?
that sounds good.
Okay,
So moved.
that was Kip. Second,
Second.
Mark. All those in favor? Okay. Then in Center Street South, converting 7 3-hour spots to permit spaces. That's item number 4 on your map.
Yep.
I think that makes
Um,
some sense.
I'm a little unclear. That Center Street lot, how much of it is, okay, 2 hour and 3 hour across the way.
So now we're talking about the south lot, the one that abuts
I
CVS.
understand. And if I look at number 4, the other places around our red number 4,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
how are those allocated?
The ones,
They're permit
so,
on the
If Mark-
periphery of that lot.
Mark, if you look at mine bigger, this one, so you see, do you see these blue ones?
Oh, yeah.
Those are all permit. And then the ones that have no coloring below, or
These would all-
like
The ones that abut Old Kings.
like
Oh.
healthcare navigation, those are all private lots.
Yeah, these are private
It's-
lots.
It's interesting.
Oh.
When
This
I
is
got
all
my
private
traffic
lots?
ticket
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that, when I got my ticket in that lot, I didn't see the permit sign because it's sort of like up in the air.
Yeah.
But when I saw it, I assumed it was commuter permit, but it
No.
wasn't.
No,
No, this is merchant permit.
So it's not at all clear to the residents
So we need to work on the
what,
signage as well.
who's getting permitted.
I would agree
Well,
with, I would
this,
agree with that.
Can I borrow this one?
yeah, go ahead. The permits are all color-coded by your lot. So, you know, somebody with a, say it's a pink Leroy West permit, you know, they can't go park in the brown Center Street North.
All right. If it says permit parking, I don't have a permit, I'm not supposed to park there. Okay.
Yeah,
fine,
period.
Fine.
But do the signs say permit parking or do they say employee permit parking?
I don't know.
Permit parking.
Because it might be.
Might be confusing.
It might be, well, it might make it more clear for everyone who's attempting to park, the differentiation between
Yeah,
commuter
I go back on my complaint. I think permit parking is perfectly adequate.
You don't have a
Okay.
permit whether it's a merchant or a
That's right.
commuter.
In fact, I don't even know what a permit looks like.
Yes.
I have no business parking. Okay.
Well, the only other thing I could say is permit parking only. That might-
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
That might be
valid.
a just
Yeah,
enough
only.
Yeah.
that's
clarification,
good. That's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Yep,
right?
Yeah.
yeah. So how do people feel about those 7 spaces
Oh,
going to permit? I have,
I personally find them troublesome that they're 3 hours and all the rest
Yeah.
along that outside are, I think it's confusing to people.
it's funny though, I park there quite
I
a
do
bit.
too.
No, I'm thinking about it.
But I'm trying to think, I think I park there more after 3:30.
Yeah, I think I make the loop, and if it's busy, then,
Mhm.
and it's not about us anyway,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well,
It's consistency.
if you think
certainly.
that people do park there and we don't need as many permit spaces, like I said before, it's harder to take the permits away once we give them, so.
Well, we are adding more permit spots than you originally intended, right? By,
By 5.
And we were gonna
Right.
only do 7 there.
right?
Yeah.
I almost think we should leave those for now.
Okay.
I mean, if you guys feel strongly, I can be convinced, but I do think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because of the way you loop around that it's,
It's hard to
Yeah.
get a spot in there.
Yeah,
Anecdotally, I hear that it's very difficult for customers to find an open spot in that lot.
It is.
I've been told over and over again, you know, if you think you've got problems over here on
Yeah,
Tokenique,
that-
you should
That's a
you
good
should see
point.
what goes on in the CVS lot.
Yeah.
And it's really, you know, people are riding around in
I'd
circles.
love to see where they go. I'd love to
It's
see where all the people go.
it's a wonderful thing that it's a shared lot, but, you know, I'll go along with that. It's confusing.
but I
Yeah.
don't know if we need to, I mean, this may not be a good idea, but maybe we make them 2-hour spots and enforce it, because 3 hours is, unless we truly think people are gonna park there and do a lot of walking.
It would be consistent and
To
to
be
the
two-
adjacent
yeah.
2-hour
So make
parking.
them
I think
2
they
hours
should be
instead of
2
permit.
hour, yes, yep.
Okay, so those 7 spots, propose converting the 7 3-hour spaces to 2-hour spaces.
Okay.
That's where my dentist is. You
Okay.
can ban them parking.
My gosh, if you have to be at the dentist chair for 3 hours.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so for item number 4, we're going to propose converting the 7 3-hour spaces to 2-hour spaces. May I have a motion to approve that
It
change?
says on number 4 that the 2-hour spaces are ready.
No, they're 3-hour spaces.
Not on ours.
I think your thing got, I don't know who gave you
Yeah.
that, but that,
Yeah, I'll move that.
The number 4 line on the top, is that inaccurate?
yeah. Yeah.
This came off of Darien 8, it's a reprint, so,
Okay,
whether
Yeah, I don't know.
it just got lost in
Okay.
translation.
You want the
Yeah,
memo?
because they're definitely
You
3-hour
want
spaces.
you want the real memo?
so,
Do you have a copy?
There it is.
yeah.
That would be great.
That's
So
mine.
Susan moved that. May I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, yep. All those in favor? Great. Okay, Center Street South Lot,
This is number
item B,
5.
proposing to convert the
So up near-
11, there's 11
11.
2-hour spaces that are adjacent to the Goose,
And
Upper
CVS.
Crust Bagel, and Bodega.
Yeah,
Converting those to 1-hour spaces for more frequent turnover.
I have the
So-
impression those are used a lot by customers of the restaurant.
So what about if we switch, how many there are?
There are
11?
11.
And Kate, how many are along this,
Along Center Street?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, looks like 8. Not including, looks like there are 2 handicapped and 8.
You're talking about right here?
Yeah, yeah.
Or, you know,
That's
or
true.
just eliminate that from the,
I think we do need more frequent turnover spots in that lot, though. No one who goes to CVS stays more than an hour.
so is it
Correct.
better to give them the ones along, that are closer to Center Street or the ones that are closer to the door? I was thinking of the Bagel Company,
Yeah.
that's a quick in and out
The
place.
Goose Restaurant.
And the CVS is a quick in and out place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense, keep them there.
But the Goose is not.
I think
Right,
it-
but the Goose, you've got a
Neither is-
lot of 2-hour parking there, so you have to walk a little bit further
Yeah.
for the people who are gonna be there for 2 hours.
I think I'm okay with the change in keeping in mind the general theory that the closer you get to the business, the parking should turn over more. You know, and I know that we get nuanced when we talk about restaurants, et cetera, but generally speaking, you know, like that's why I believe we have 1-hour spots on the street front, on Post Road, is so that people park and they do their business and then they move along.
I think it makes sense to keep it, to do what Kate proposed.
We can,
I think you'll have very little enforcement.
little enforcement.
I don't think, I mean, first of all, those are 1-hour spaces. And they're
Yeah.
all by themselves, little, 11 spaces. I think that the practicality of the ranger going back there and finding them and doing them on a regular basis. But
Okay, so I have another proposal then. Leave those at 2-hour, but make the other Center Street, the main Center Street now, the 11 spots on that Center Street 1 hour.
Oh, that's a
that are
great idea.
in the CVS lot, but
Nope,
but
nope,
facing-
they're on the street.
Oh, they're on the
Oh, on the
street.
street.
It's 11
Oh,
2-hour.
oh, oh.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a great idea.
Well, I don't know, let's talk about the practicality of that.
Well,
You might not be parking there and running into CVS
Yeah,
for
that's
15
what I'm
minutes.
thinking.
That's what I'm thinking, it's easier maybe access for enforcement, but
Mhm.
if you want easy enforcement in proximity to the businesses, the ones in the lot closer to Center Street would be like the best of both worlds.
Yes, I would agree with that.
but we don't have as many.
Eh.
It's more than
Spaces.
than
Than there is
is
now.
there now.
All right, so make these, would you
Those
say
8.
8 1-hour spots? So that's like a number 6 on the map. We can make a number 6.
No,
So-
yeah, I've got it all.
So we leave number 5 as is. We eliminate your recommendation for number 5.
We get rid of number 5, and
Okay.
the new number 5
It's
is
those spaces.
the 8 spaces in Center Street South,
To 1 hour.
along Center Street.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to see those single spots closest to CVS. 2 of them are handicapped.
Yep.
See that? That whole
Yes.
row could be,
That's what we're talking about.
1
That's
hour.
what
Making
we're
that-
talking about, making that 1 hour.
okay.
And that makes some sense, because as I'm thinking about how I see people using those spots, that's how they use them.
The only downside is the bagel place, but
Yeah.
I think also a lot of people, I mean, it depends where you pull into the front. You still have the front of the bagel place
Yep.
that move quickly.
I know a lot of people would do a lot of walking to shop at the bagel place.
True. I'm okay with making that suggestion.
Okay.
Converting the 8 spaces along Center Street to 1 hour.
You're talking about the ones in the lot itself?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, but
In the lot,
Yeah.
but they front.
By the
Center Street.
CVS loading dock.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yep,
where it's already a handicap, yes.
Right.
Yep,
yep.
okay.
Okay. Do you have a motion on that?
Progress.
Yep, okay, so I'll motion to approve the new number 5, converting 8 spaces in Center Street South along Center Street to 1 hour.
So move.
Mark, may I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay,
All right.
Wow.
well, we'll see, right?
We'll see, and it will take a little bit of time to become effective because we have to get signage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I do like the idea of saying permit parking only.
Yes, I made that note.
Yep. Okay. So, thank you, Bill, very much
Yeah.
for all your suggestions on that. It's good to
Kept it
hear,
here longer, but
yeah.
It's actually nice to have a view of what goes on.
For sure.
Well, yeah.
We
It helps.
benefit
Yes, I
from
don't
that.
get over here often.
Yeah.
Keep us honest.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Okay, so
So the next one, I think first you have to discuss whether or not you want to consider raising the permit fee. And if you do
Yep.
want to raise the permit fee, then we need to set a date for a public hearing.
I'd like to propose that we raise the permit fee to the recommended $100. It represents only an inflationary adjustment from the last time we adjusted the rate.
Yeah, and Linda and I went back through the changes to the code. We went back to about 2009. We could not find when the merchant fee was last updated.
So if it's
So
been
it's been quite some time.
at least 10 years, that represents an
Yes,
inflationary adjustment.
Certainly.
Okay, so then I would suggest,
Also, the 1 hour violations are now $30, so.
Right.
Paying $100 for a permit for the year is
Well,
peanuts compared to
yeah.
finding tickets on your windshield.
I actually think it could be more than $100, but I think that we should take an action this evening on this and make the adjustment and then do some market research on,
How often you should.
for next year.
yeah.
For next year.
Yeah.
So we need to set a date.
Okay?
And if we have a public hearing at your next meeting in conjunction with the meeting, then it then has to be published in the newspaper for 15 days before it can become effective. So that schedule would allow us to have it effective and send the letters out at the beginning of November, which was our original timetable for sending out the merchant letters.
Great, okay. So the 9/23 Board of Selectmen meeting.
Kate, I noticed that you're saying that the fee includes state sales tax.
Yes, it does.
Now, we pay sales tax here, but we don't pay it when we have.
No, we actually don't pay sales tax, but we have to include it in our fee. We make that statement so that we don't have to add it on top of it, but when we file our sales tax return, because we're in a specific region that's impacted by pollution, we don't pay. We're forgiven the sales tax.
But you would pay it normally.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we are subject to, we are required to charge sales tax on certain things. So, but for that, we're where we are, we would have to pay it.
I was just noting the difference between that and the discussion about the meter fees.
Mm.
You know, where you would have an add-on for collections or for a credit card.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to ask for a vote on raising the employee permit parking fee from $85 to $100.
So moved.
Susan, may I have a second?
I'll second that.
Yep. All those in favor? Okay.
And again, it's a license to find a space, not a
Yes.
not a
License to hunt.
guaranteed space.
Yeah, that's what Carl used to say,
License to
license to
hunt.
hunt.
Yep.
Mm.
Okay, wow, I barely remember these.
Wait,
Oh,
one
but
more.
Mark had asked to
Oh.
have a discussion
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the impact of redevelopment
Okay,
project
sorry
on
about that.
commuter
Yes.
I was gonna do some homework, like try to find out the status of the parking garage and availability in the parking garage at Stanford, but I didn't do that. I'm still concerned, but I don't have a proposed solution. The concern being that a number of commuters without permits park in the grocery store parking lots are allowed to. But with redevelopment coming up very soon, there'll soon be chain link fences around those parking lots, and those people will be circulating, looking for a place to leave their car so they can get to work.
Yeah,
So-
and it,
I'm sorry.
you know, it's gonna be hard to know how impactful that will be until the development actually starts and we see.
Well,
Pardon?
I will tell you that the Norotan Heights Access Study consultant studied that issue. They watched where people walked when they got off the train. So we can probably ask Ed to have the consultant prepare a memo for us on that topic.
That's probably in their report, or we could
Yes.
ask for a memo, they may
Yeah.
have some good ideas for us.
Yes. Well, I don't know that they're gonna have some good ideas, so the philosophical discussion is this. These people are getting free parking.
Yes.
every day to go to work, which is, that's great. The generosity of the property owners, right, in Norotan Heights. Not unlike the generosity of some property owners in the downtown area who don't want to enforce parking in their lots. That's their prerogative, right?
Mhm.
We should talk about what solutions are available to us to help mitigate that. And would we charge for those solutions? Or are we looking to find different free parking?
See, I have a theory that, or a philosophy that, I understand that people need to park somewhere to get to work. But I don't think it's the Board of Selectmen's job. If someone's been parking for free, basically, in my mind, illegally on private property, and the private property people choose not to enforce it, I don't view that as our problem to find spots for them. I view it as they should be ashamed that they're doing it and getting away with it.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and not all these people are Darien residents.
Mhm.
that's true, yes.
I'm just concerned about the impact on the community of more than 100 cars wandering around looking for a place to park all of a sudden when those fences go up. And I don't know quite what we can do about it.
Well, I think human nature would be, at least if it were me and the fences go up and my free parking space is not there anymore, I would likely find a new solution on my own to
But
parking.
I might not get to work that day.
You'll get there the next day because you'll figure it out.
I think what we probably can do is ask the developers. The developers know that there's people that are parking in their lots that aren't shopping in their stores, or tenants in their projects. Put up notice signs, give them enough notice.
Put a notice under their windshield wiper.
I don't think that's legal,
I don't know.
but we
Well,
certainly can.
It would be effective, but I mean,
You can't go onto private property and put
Yeah.
those things on without the permission of the owner.
well, no, the owner would do that.
Let
That's
them
my
start
thought.
So if
working
you've
on
been
diversion
parking illegally
Yeah.
in somebody's
before
lot,
the
are you gonna
chain
complain
fences
that they put a
Correct.
flyer under your windshield wiper?
Be surprised.
I think,
Yeah.
I'm in Susan's camp. Is it our obligation to find them spaces? My concern is whether or not they go in places they shouldn't, bad enough now they're in somebody's private property squatting.
I think that's.
Will they go
worse.
into a neighborhood and clog,
That's where
park
I
on a
am.
side street?
Yeah.
Will they go and park, in a park?
Yeah.
And then our
Right.
park goers cannot park,
Right.
boy, that's a lot of use of the word park.
So, Kate, let me ask you a question. Right now, in Baker, there's no signs limiting parking, is there?
Correct.
So we may have to put a sign if people are using, let's say, Baker.
I think people do already, honestly, but that would be a solution
No.
if Parks and Rec would put in signs, something to the effect of, 4-hour parking, 8 AM to 6 PM, so that they're, people can go use the playgrounds, and when it's time for baseball games, they can park. But during the day, it would give us the opportunity to enforce.
The other road that we might want to consider thinking about talking to, I guess the police commission is Edgerton, to make sure nobody parks on Edgerton, because that would not be a good road
Mhm.
for someone to start parking.
Well,
Or Patton.
that's right, it would not be
Yeah,
good.
But Patton has, I think they have signs now of limited
Limited
parking.
parking.
Yeah,
But Edgerton might be a road that we would need to make sure people
Yeah.
are not parking beforehand.
And it
So-
has to be signed for them.
Yeah.
And one problem with signage is that, if we say 2-hour parking, it applies to the residents as well as
Yeah.
the,
Oh, that's true, yeah.
yeah.
I get your point, Mark, that, we do need to be concerned if they're trying to find parking elsewhere.
And the problem may only last for 30 days or something, and it resolve itself.
It'll resolve itself in the summertime also, because there will be more,
Mhm.
there's usually more openings.
Oh, that's a
Yes.
good point.
yeah.
But these projects are not starting in the summertime.
Yeah, they're not, they're
So
still.
let's see if we can ascertain with information already available the magnitude of the problem.
Sure.
Okay.
My feeling, I have a feeling that Palmer's enforces it more than the Stop and Shop parking lot, but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think that's probably true.
Could we talk to those two parking lots right now and encourage them to enforce it now before it even, so
That's
people
a
have
good-
even
that's a
more
good
of a,
idea.
more of a.
That's a good idea,
Or at least
Susan.
put something so people are aware that, guess what, in a couple months or weeks, these parking spaces are not gonna be available.
Yeah, I think once we've identified
Community.
the magnitude of the problem, we can reach out to the developers and say that we anticipate there might be an issue.
Yeah, if we see that, if we can get that information from the study, we can
Yeah.
actually send them, say, our study identified X number of people that are parking in your lot, were you
Yeah.
aware?
Correct, yep, yep. And then the other, another option that we could look at, I don't know the geometry of Heights Road, to see if there's any opportunity for new on-street parking on Heights Road.
Mm.
I doubt it, but,
I doubt it.
So there is on-street parking opposite the nail salon
Mhm.
and Bavala's now.
Mhm.
But I don't know what the time frame of that parking is.
yeah.
I don't think
I
it's
think it's
long.
pretty quick.
Like
Yeah.
20 minutes, something like that. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a couple of follow-up items on that.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, now we have meeting minutes from over a year
There we
ago.
go.
It's been a long
Yeah,
time.
so-
Yikes.
Fortunately, we do the vote sheets, and I will tell you, there may be typos, but we know who made the motions
Yes.
and seconded.
Well, also, one thing I saw in new business under C, we said the date for the public hearing would be September 10th, 2019. I'm not
Oops.
sure that was
And
correct.
first
Like I
selectment
said,
should be
there were
capitalized,
Typos.
Yeah.
so that's probably 18.
18.
18, yes, it was 18.
And then
Yes.
capital F for first selectment,
And for selecting singular.
correct?
I only had a question on item A, under the motion that I made, the very last word changes. Does that make any sense?
No,
Just take out the word
take out the word
changes.
changes.
Thank you.
I think because I originally had the motion word that you concurred with the changes, and I said, no. I looked at the written out motion and,
Okay, just take out the changes.
yep.
That's it.
And also, oh, never mind, sorry, misread it myself. Nope.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Yep. May I have a second?
Second.
Mark. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Mark, may I have a second?
Second.
Susan, all those in favor?